Today on Locked On Red Wings, Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider shine bright amid inconsistent team play, how we finally found our top pair.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I'm a color commentator for Oakland University D1 Hockey. And today's episode, we got an off day for you guys. We haven't had an off day in a while. The Red Wings played, 4 games in 5 days, something crazy like that. So we're going to talk to you guys a little bit more in depth about just the absolute bright spot amidst a sea of inconsistent team play that is Seider and Edvinsson as a top pair. Going to talk about how Husso got injured again and is week to week, and whether or not we're even concerned about it with how this goalie tandem is playing at this point. And then also a little bit deeper conversation about the line shuffling we saw. A great game out of them against the Edmonton Oilers. Couldn't pull out the win, but is it good enough to have these lines stick, especially once Tyler Mott returns from injury? So we'll talk about all that and more on today's episode. And before we get to that, I got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Also want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Scotty. We talked about it yesterday. Seider and Edvinsson were fantastic against Edmonton. We were not expecting to see them together as a pair this quickly. I think going into the season, not even I think, we had discussions about it going into the season, that maybe by the end of the season, Edvinsson will have earned his place on the top pair once he proves himself to be able to handle the workload on the second pair. And we also liked him on the second pair, ideally, because it gives you a much better second pair, at least on paper, because Edvinsson can handle more of the workload than the second pair we saw last year. Well, quickly, we realized the top pair, i.e. Ben Chiarot, could not handle the playing with Moritz Seider and those minutes. So he got bumped up, and what we've seen since then has been just quickly some great progression and development from Simon Edvinsson as he takes on that mantle, that role. My question here is have we finally gotten a top pair, a genuine top pair, and is it worth kind of hurting? I don't want to say hurting, but having less quality depth down the rest of the D lineup.
Yeah, well, the latter part of that is the $1 million question, right? It's have we found our top pair? I mean, yeah. Is there anybody else you'd rather play alongside Mo at the moment? No. I don't think anyone else is even close in comparison. Certainly as far as production so far this year, but I mean, we have 8 defensemen that there's, I don't think a single other one outside. So of the 6 other defensemen that aren't named Mo and Simon, I don't think any of them are even remotely in the conversation of, okay, well, maybe, that this guy could do better than Edvinsson has been doing over the last 3 or 4 games. I think that ship has completely sailed. The only reason you don't is because of the second half of that question. And that is a very, very tough question. I think I would keep it how it is. And the reason why is because we have talked a lot about possession and about deployment. And when you talk deployment, and we talk about Seider's deployment specifically, this dude is on the ice against the other team's best players all the time. And it's going to drive me nuts to have potentially a Chiarot Petrie second pair. That's going to absolutely drive me up a wall. But I think, unless you come in with a great argument and sweep me off my feet with those beautiful eyes, I think I would rather, don't bat them after. I think I would rather have Edvinsson and Seider play a ton of minutes against the other team's best competition and just take the lumps with the second and third pair against presumably lesser competition from the opponent, then have Seider go out there with Sherratt or whoever, and half of the pairing is somewhat of a liability sometimes, and Edvinsson is also like half of his pair is somewhat of a liability sometimes, and like I think because of deployment, I would rather be just put them all on the top, but I absolutely can hear out the argument of spacing them out too.
Going into the season, I was absolutely of the mindset space them out just because
Same.
I desperately wanted them to not give Moritz Seider such extreme usage. And early on this season, that is not the case. And to our own credit, Derek Lalonde said that they weren't going to change how they used Moritz Seider. I mean, he is getting some more offensive zone deployments. He is getting more minutes overall, but the quality of competition that he plays against game in and game out has not changed. He's still playing the toughest by a wide margin versus everyone else in the league. Like, I can pull up Puck IQ and you can see how, and I will probably later in a couple minutes, show you exactly how difficult the competition they are facing versus other defensemen in the league. And if they had wanted to ease up Seider's deployments a little bit so he could have a little bit more game time against lesser competition to flash his offensive zone acuity, then I was absolutely of the mindset, split them up. But to what you said, going right along with it, if they're going to, and they are going to continue to give him such extreme defensive zone usage as the only defenseman on this team who can play competent defense in the defensive zone against the other team's best, then it makes sense to put Simon Edvinsson with him because he's the only defenseman who can keep up with Moritz Seider, because that was the big problem last year with Jake Wallman and this year early on with Ben Sherratt, and even the year before that with Ben Sherratt and Moritz Seider. Like, we saw they needed Moritz Seider in the defensive zone at all times, and he didn't have a partner who could keep up with that. And when Moritz Seider's pair was failing, it was usually just because his partner got wore down. So far, with Simon Edvinsson, that has not been the case. In fact, I mean, I'll reckon back to what we saw just yesterday, or 2 days ago by the time people are listening to this, about the game against the Edmonton Oilers. I almost called them the Conor McDavids. The Edmonton Oilers.
You're close.
Because my point includes Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid, Moritz Seider, and Simon Edvinsson played 20 minutes of 5-on-5 hockey in that hockey game, and 15 of those minutes were against Connor McDavid for both of those guys. They were exclusively used to face off against the best player in the world of hockey across the globe, and they weren't just serviceable against the best player in the league. They were dominant against the best player in the league. Scotty, they walked away from that game with a 62% shot share for Simon Edvinsson and a 57% shot share for Moritz Seider. Shot attempt share, I should make sure I clarify. And then for expected goal share, they walked away from that hockey game at 5-on-5 with a 71% expected goal share for Simon Edvinsson and a 64% expected goal share for Moritz Seider. That, of course, Corsi for percentage and expected goals for percentage, respectively, for both of those statistics that I just shared for you. Like, they weren't just good, they were dominant against the best player in the world. And it just, ever since Simon Edvinsson has been paired up with Moritz Seider, obviously there's been like growing pains. He had to learn he literally was thrown into the fire, but he's grown so fast. And if you look at, the Dauber hockey table, right? You want to sort this by just the Detroit Red Wings D-men so we can see that first and foremost. Like, you'll see that not only are they getting the toughest competition on the ice, and you'll see that Simon Edvinsson is still lagging behind Ben Sherratt. I would imagine part of that is just because he hasn't been playing with Ben Sherratt, or Edvinsson hasn't been playing with Moritz Seider this entire season so far. Sorry, I'm talking while I'm trying to pull this up. I mean, I share my screen here, and you can see just how dominant they have been thus far. Like, it's Moritz Seider at the top. You have Ben Sherratt down right beneath him, and Simon Edvinsson, who's getting even more defensive zone deployments than Moritz Seider on the young season. But not only are they getting the toughest deployments on the team, their bubbles are blue. And for those of you who don't know, that means they are positive Corsi for percentage despite the toughest deployments on the team relative to their teammates. So they're getting the toughest deployments, and they're still performing better than some of their teammates relative to how their teammates are getting played.
Ben Sherratt has had the second toughest deployments and is the darkest red you can possibly have on the chart.
And you'll see this there'll be a discrepancy because if you go to Puck IQ, you'll see that they have Moritz Seider and Simon Edvinsson as having the toughest deployments in the league with Ben Sherratt beneath that. But like just another example right here, and this is exactly what we talk about where, let me zoom in on this so you guys can see. Like you can see Moritz Seider and Simon Edvinsson all the way at the top here for time on the ice percentage facing elite minus time on ice percentage facing grit is what they call it. So the bottom pair guys, the bottom line guys. You can see that Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider have 40%, over 40% total of their ice time in the elite direction. And if I were to click on any single one of these, you can see the breakdown to the right. You know, Moritz Seider, so far this season, is playing 60% of his time on the ice against elite competition and only 17 against grit. The difference here is other number one defensemen play about 50% against elite and about 20% against grit. And that's where this difference is being made. You look at Ryan McDonough, 51% elite, 20% grit. Mike Matheson in Montreal, 56% elite, 28% grit. Like, they are both exclusively being used, and just like last year, against the best of the best the other team has to offer, exclusively in the defensive zone, although getting a little bit more offensive zone time. But this season, because Seider has Simon Edvinsson on his pair, they have been very good early on. Very good.
Yeah, and I think I am interested in how or if that usage is adjusted, if it's permanent and it's just going to be Mo and Edvinsson, you know, because again, like I don't think you can afford then the whole back to the original point of this conversation. Like I don't think you can afford to have Sherratt and Petrie out there against really good competition on a consistent basis and win a lot of games. So like,
right.
Is it possible for the deployment to get even more difficult? Like, are they just going to play like 25 minutes a game all against, you know, the best that every team has to offer? Like, maybe.
Well, and you raise a really good point, and I want to touch on that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings, so stay tuned. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest news, stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Also need to talk to you guys today about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks allows you to curate and make it easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, and so much more. They got this all-in pricing toggle that once you turn it on, it'll show all the fees up front so nothing surprises you at checkout. And you can get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy with the seat views. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, I want to go back to sharing my screen there. Actually, before that, I wanted to touch on what you had mentioned. So, Moritz Seider, Simon Edvinsson, we just discussed. They're getting super tough deployments already, and they're doing a great job. But you brought up a fantastic point that the second pair is suffering because of it, which sounds weird to say, right? You're like, oh, they're getting the toughest deployments. It should make everyone else's life easier. But you still need a second pair that can competently face the second and third lines when the top pair is the few minutes they're not on the ice isn't on there, because you're still running into the same situation you ran into last year where your bottom pair is getting extremely sheltered. And the bulk majority of that is because of the fact that it's either a rookie and Albert Johansson playing or Eric Gustafsson, your offensive defenseman, who has been absolutely underwhelming so far this season. So basically what it comes down to is whenever Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider are on the ice, you need Ben Chiarot and Petrie to hold down the fort, and they are getting caved in. And that is where the problem becomes. You don't really have a competent second pair right now because we saw it last year. Ben Chiarot and Jeff Petrie just do not have good chemistry. I think combined, their play styles don't match up, and I think they're both a little bit too old to be playing this kind of role, specifically Jeff Petrie. Not saying we have better options, but that doesn't mean that this is a good option still.
Right. It's just like, well, then what do you do? What are...
You just run it back with Edvinsson and Seider. That's all you can do.
No. I mean in the bottom four.
Yeah. No, that's the problem. You have 6 other defensemen you can run it out there any given night, and none of them can take top 4 minutes.
Right. So it's just going to be Chiarot and Petrie.
I mean, I go back to the screen here, right? Like, I'm still sharing the old screen, so let me reset that. Like, you go back to this player usage chart on Dobber prospects, right? And you can see Ben Chiarot, according to Dobber, says that he has the second hardest deployment next to Moritz Seider. Again, that's probably because of the fact that this takes on, is considering his deployments with Seider very early on. But it's just, you can see how dark red that circle is. That means relative to his teammates, he's not performing well. Same thing with Jeff Petrie. Top 4 minutes, not performing well relative to his teammates, despite the fact that he's getting a lot easier competition because Edvinsson and Seider are taking on so much. But they also have to pick up a little bit more slack because look at how weak the competition is that the rest of the defensemen are playing right now. Olli Maatta, Gustafsson, and Albert Johansson are all getting offensive zone deployments against softer competition. Justin Holl's getting slightly more defensive zone deployments, but it's just like they're so sheltered that you need the top 4 to do it all, primarily the top pair, but Jeff Petrie and Ben Chiarot just aren't capable of picking up the slack, and that's why this conversation hurts you.
So, like, are we going to see Olli Maatta on the second pair?
No, you can't. Like, this is the problem is we're in between a rock and a hard place. Like, you can't afford to break up Seider and Edvinsson because Edvinsson's the only partner capable of taking that workload along with Moritz Seider right now. But you don't have any other defensemen who are capable of eating the middle minutes. And that's a bad thing.
I mean, this chart just tells you that Petrie and Chiarot have played good competition and been bad. And Olli Maatta and like Aljo and Hall have played not very great competition, but been like pretty good. So I don't know. Like I think I just think you have to play blender a little bit. Like I would be very frustrated if we're gonna see plenty of games of Petrie and Chiarot. I know that, but like I would be frustrated if it was just like, yeah, well, this is like our only opportunity. Like it's just gonna be Chiarot. You just combined their two names. Petrie and Chiarot are like the only option for the middle. Like, no, you have 8 defensemen. I'm gonna get mad again. Like you have 8. You have 8 defensemen on your roster for Lord knows what reason. Like maybe I don't know. Like try and mix and match and say, and maybe you don't have any answers, which like is very plausible. Maybe you have 8 defensemen and 6 of them can't play top 4, which is a bad look, a really bad look on this front office if that's your reality. So either you have that's your reality where 6 out of 8 aren't good enough to play second pair, and your front office did a terrible job of prepping for the season, or you don't give anyone else an opportunity and just keep bashing your head against the wall with Chiarot and Petrie, and it keeps not working, and that's on coaching. Like you got to try at least somebody.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I feel like right now your best alternative to Petrie and Chiarot on the second pair is Justin Holl on the right and Albert Johansson on the left. Because I know what Olli Maatta is. I know Olli Maatta is a solid third pair defenseman, but he's not a second pair defenseman. Gustafsson cannot play defense well enough to play on the second pair. So like you're looking at a reality where it kind of has to be. You have to try. Oh, you're going to be so mad at me when I share my screen here in just a second. When you're
going to share your screen, right? We have another ad break.
I just have one more thing that's cool. That's all. I just want it doesn't have to be a conversation. But like that's the only option I can see. that they can try, because I don't need to see Olimata on the second pair. I don't need to see Gustafsson on the second pair.
I
I know what we
agree
have in
with
them.
giving Hall a bigger opportunity, and I agree with giving Aljo a bigger opportunity.
Like, why? That's the only thing I'm like. We haven't seen Justin Holl in the second pair this season. He's been a little bit hit or miss, but he's been playing better. I think you signed him to be your second pair on the right side when you signed him last year prior to the Petrie trade. So give him that shot, see what he can do. Put Albert Johansson on the left side. Problem is like you're throwing out a rookie to play top 4 minutes, so you probably don't project to play that long-term in his career. And on the other side, you have Justin Holl, who has been very hit or miss, just like Petrie and Sherratt. Like,
yeah, nothing's a guarantee, right?
The top pair is excellent. The third pair is serviceable. The second pair is a massive question mark.
Yeah.
Massive. Anyways, real quick, I'll throw this up on the screen. You don't even have to change the background. We'll leave it. It'll look jank. I'll save you. So this is Hockey Stat Card. They came out with the best defensive ratings through the first 4 games. You can see that overall, the best players with the defensive ratings, this includes forwards and defense. Moritz Seider is ranked second best defensive rating. Simon Edvinsson is ranked 10th base defensive rating, according to Hockey Stat Cards, across every single team. Yeah, and when you want to see the breakdown specifically for the forwards, Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond are the fourth and fifth. Who would have thought? Like, this is a great.
That's why he's on the PK, man.
That's why he's on the PK. Who would have thought that Lucas Raymond, who we were talking about not being great defensively the last 2 years and needed to develop that game, would be fourth and fifth through minimum of 4 games played. So 8, 9 for the Red Wings now, would be fourth and fifth in defensive rating amongst forwards. Amongst defense, Seider's 2 and Edvinsson is 10th again in the defensive ratings across the league. So the Red Wings, despite playing inconsistent team play, we know the top line and top pair, just like yesterday, are great, which is nice to see. They just got to put the whole thing together.
Right.
All right. That was it, Scotty. We're going to send it to segment 3, and when we return, we'll talk about Ville Husso and maybe a little bit about the lines. So stay tuned to segment 3. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineups. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. I saw that. That's a bad look for you, Scotty. Husso's hurt. He tweaked something. He just can't manage to stay healthy. I'm honestly gutted for the guy because he went down the Grand Rapids and he was killing it. He looked great. He looked like he was poised to get called back up. I don't know where there would have been a spot on the roster for him, but he looked like he was ready to play NHL hockey again. And then he got not pulled, but he ended up having to be pulled because of tweaking an injury and is now week to week with that injury. And so my question is, with as well as the goaltending tandem we have in Detroit is playing out of Alex Lyon and Cam Talbot, is the goalie tandem set? And is this kind of the nail in the coffin for Ville Husso and his time in Detroit?
Yeah, the first part, yes, the goalie tandem is set. It's going to be Lyon and Talbot going forward, and I think that people are pretty optimistic about that. I think this is easily the most optimistic I've been about really any goalie tandem the Wings have had in a very long time. That's not to say that they're going to be incredible the entire season. I still have serious questions about whether they'll be really good over 82, but at least right now, I feel good about it, and I think that's a great thing. When it comes to Husso, I mean, I'm not a doctor. Like, I don't know how serious of an injury it is. I don't know if this is truly a week-to-week thing, and it's just he's going to take a couple of games off and then he'll get worked back and be fine, or whether it's you remember that one year that Bert got hurt and they were like, oh yeah, he's
Yes.
day to day, and then he never came back, and he was
day to day the
for
entire season,
5 months or whatever. Yeah.
Mm.
Like, I don't know. Like, I have no clue what the future holds in terms of this injury with him. I will say that whenever he does come back, I think we are at a point now where Husso is not going to be forced back into the NHL lineup. Could it happen? Yes. If he gets healthy, he keeps doing well in Grand Rapids after he becomes healthy again, and Alex Lyon struggles, then yes, they're going to bring Husso back up at some point. He's going to get some opportunities. If Talbot tails off and the age catches up with him and just tails off over the course of the season, Husso gets healthy, he'll get called back up, right? Obviously, if there's an injury to either of those two, then Husso will get called. I don't think this is like we're never going to see Ville Husso in a winged wheel ever again, unless the injury calls for that. But I do think that the days of, all right, well, we have to find a start for Husso are gone. I think it's going to have to be situationally based. And if Lyon and Husso do not give you a reason to start Ville Husso, then they will not start Ville Husso.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on every single front. Like, I think the tandem is set for now. It's kind of just, it's more of the same as we saw last year. Like, long as Lyon and Talbot are going to be playing well, Ville Husso is not really going to have an opportunity to work his way back in, because now it's their nets. They're the one and they're the two for this team going forward. And right now, Alex Lyon's the second best goalie in the league by save percentage.
Yeah.
He's played 5 games. He has the second best save percentage at .941 on the season. Alex Lyon is starting, and again, both goalies have kind of had a bad game, but outside of that, they've been incredible. He has a goal saved above expected of 5.47 on the season. That's a cumulative stat. So that means on the season, he's saved almost 5.5 more goals than he should have, according to that statistic. That gives him the 8th best goal saved above expected in the league. Cam Talbot's no slouch either. Obviously, he had that 42 save shutout for his first game of the season, and then had a bad game following that. But he's 20th in the league in goals saved above expected at 1.51, and his save percentage is 908, almost 909, which is above league average if this were last year as well. Like, you have 2 goalies that are playing well, and the most consistent piece of your team right now. Like, your top line's consistently playing well, your top pair is consistently playing well, and your goaltending is consistently playing well. It's everything below the tops of those things that is being super inconsistent right now. And until one of them goes into a slump and Husso is healthy and looks good in Grand Rapids, he's not going to get another opportunity, in my opinion. Does that mean Husso's time in Detroit is done at the end of the season? Yeah, probably. But that doesn't mean he's not going to play another game in the winged wheel, because we saw this last year with these goaltenders. Not Cam Talbot. I should exclude him from the conversation. Some emotional scars affecting that opinion. But, like, these goaltenders can go on streaks where they're playing really well and then just absolutely crater out of the blue. So I think his time in Detroit is done at the end of game 82, but doesn't mean he won't play again this season for Detroit. But for him to play again, he'll have to be healthy, be playing well in Grand Rapids, and have one of the NHL goalies go into a major slump. I think that's like his only path back to the NHL right now.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Scotty, we wanted to talk about the lines, but we have another off day tomorrow with the preview. We should push the line talk to tomorrow.
Yeah, I think
that
I
way
want
we
to
can
spend
give
more
it
than
the
a minute on that. So
right. More than just like, will it stick? Yes, because we don't know that.
We also can get maybe some practice lines out of if we wait till tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, good point. See, this is why you're my co-host. You're the brains of the operation.
Hardly.
I don't know. Have you heard me talk?
Yeah. I'm saying there are no brains, not that I am the brains.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should send it off here. I can smell pasta cooking. So
wow,
I
lucky
think spaghetti.
You.
I think spaghetti's getting made for dinner.
Mom's spaghetti.
My wife's spaghetti.
Ah, that's not a Eminem song. So
I know, but that's what it is.
Okay.
Good conversation. All right. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk Lions then. When I say Lions, I keep thinking it sounds like I'm saying Lions.
It does actually a
Oh,
lot.
does it?
I thought
Okay.
about that the first time you said it too. It really sounds like we're about to break down the Detroit Lions. Yeah,
Do you want to? We can talk about that tomorrow.
sure.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
not happening.
We'll talk about
there's a whole show called Locked On Lions that does a great job. That I'm not stepping on the toes of our own network in our own city. No, but
we're gunning for Matt Derry's job.
Matt
We're gunning
Derry,
for it.
right? No, Matt rocks.
All right. We ball.
We ball
Same time, same place. See your team every day.
every day.